event. And we will be recording this Zoom program, so I'm asking for all of your collective permission to do so. Hopefully, you're all good with that. So the 2024 BNF semifinalist program lineup is Olivia Harding with Brooklyn Syndrome, Jim Search, My Life in Brooklyn, Trisha Simone, Are We There Yet? Diane Morelli, A Store Closes in Brooklyn, Barbara Antonio, Rumore C. Mossberg. At 76, I Have Come to It, Crossing the Brooklyn Bridge. Amazing Tools, The Strength Lessons of Brooklyn. Margaret Katz, Home Was the Brooklyn-Shaped Hole You Left Me With. Kinsey Vittori, Deep Down You Knew. Emma Allswing, Touching Grass. Anita Bushell, Tin Can. And that is the amazing group of humans that we're able to share with on this night. And let's hear your stories. Thank you. So I guess first up would be Olivia.
All right. So my story is called Brooklyn Syndrome, and it is a story within a story, both true, with names changed, of me explaining what it's like to live in Brooklyn to my friends in Kansas City. It's like having Stockholm Syndrome. I was sitting at an expansive dining room table in my friend's house, his house, doubly emphasized for ownership and layout in Kansas City. His wife had asked me what Brooklyn was like. What do you mean by Stockholm Syndrome? Matthew asked. I mean that New York City tortures you. It's like living life on hard mode, but when people ask you why you don't leave, the question seems crazy. Why would you leave? It's the best place in the world, especially Brooklyn. But the more you try to explain it, the more people look at you like you're insane. Did I write expansive dining room table? It seated 6. It was a normal sized dining room table. Tell us about living life on hard mode in the best place in the world, Matthew prompted. So I told them about the 4th of July. I usually wasn't in New York for the 4th of July. Most years, I was on the road with my band. But for the few years that I wasn't, I spent Independence Day, A, in the middle of New York Harbor, hired to read tarot cards for a private cruise, B, flying over all the teeny tiny Brooklyn fireworks on my way to learn Icelandic for a month in Reykjavik, C, stuck in traffic for 2 hours on the FDR because my sister needed to move out of her apartment and we forgot about the East River fireworks. But in 2022, I found myself in my crumbling, rent-controlled Carroll Gardens apartment with nothing to do. Omar also didn't have 4th of July plans. Omar was a musician. All 3 of us were. Omar was a drummer, Jeff was a pianist, and I played accordion and guitar. None of us had known each other when we moved in, but now I knew the exact patterns of Jeff's breathing when he practiced accompaniments on the keyboard in the living room, and I had the smell of the spiced granola Omar would make in the morning seared pleasantly on my olfactory memory. If it were a sitcom, we would have spent our evenings jamming, but we never played music together in that apartment. Jeff and I were both hired to sing at the church across the street, and Omar and I swapped albums and gave feedback and encouragement, but our musical lives didn't click together. Classical, experimental, folk. Also, we lived on the top floor. We couldn't do that to our neighbors. Omar suggested the roof. It seemed a good a plan as any to me, and we went around the corner to the place that sold beer and cheese, even though the sign said bear and cheese. We grabbed a couple cans of cider based solely on their colorful labels and climbed up to the unfinished roof. We weren't the first ones there by a long shot. There were about 15 people clustered on the rooftop. Our neighbors from across the hall had set up blankets on the spongy, dimpled surface and were blasting music and pouring champagne. I shyly took it as an opportunity to say more than hi or, do you need any help with your baby carriage? After all, they were the only ones besides us who weren't family. The residents of the other 6 units in the building were all descended from the nonagenarian matriarch and patriarch who had recently returned to Puerto Rico and his maker, respectively. The fireworks began. Something I had to make my Kansas City friends understand. Our roof had the best view in Brooklyn. Perhaps there were better ones, but I refused to believe it. Downtown Manhattan pierced through an orange haze on one side, and downtown Brooklyn loomed on the other. And the twilight blue cranes of New Jersey lurked in the distance, and the identifiable spires of Cobble Hill's churches provided street markers. With the fireworks, the view became a kaleidoscope. Everywhere we turned, there was a burst of color, and I spun in circles, turning the bright blasts into streaks of light, trying to see them all at once. Someone poured champagne in my glass. Someone started playing a song I recognized. Someone asked me if I lived in the building. All those someones blur together now. I never saw them again, as with most of the strangers I met at parties in Brooklyn. The strangers who told me so much about themselves. I needed to find myself again after quarantine. He wants us to be open, but I'm not sure. I missed my mom. And then disappeared. For a while, I spoke to no one and just stood in the middle of the surround sound 360 degrees fireworks display. I thought, why do I ever leave? Why do I spend so many months away from this place? Why don't I quit my band, sell my car, and be a full-time Brooklynite? Why do I need anything more than this? And when the fireworks were mostly done, I went downstairs, opened the door to my bedroom, and got the wake-up call I needed. What happened? Alex prompted as I sipped my water. A cockroach flew straight at me and hit me in the face. No, Julie squealed. They fly? Alex gagged. The Kansas City conversation turned to bug facts and horror stories involving creepy crawlies. I looked around the dining room. No hot pipes to burn your hands on. No relentless traffic sounds. My car was comfortably parked outside and could stay there all month if I wanted. But I wouldn't find any strangers on the roof of this house to watch a psychedelic sky with me. Whether or not other people understood it, I had made my choice.
That was amazing. So relatable on so many levels. Like every time you turned a corner, it was like another relatable moment for, I think, everyone in the group. That was beautiful, Olivia. Thank you so much for reading that.
Thank you.
Brooklyn Syndrome. Beautiful. All right, Jim Search, you're up. My Life in Brooklyn.
All right, let's do this, shall we? I'll just jump right in. Let's get to it, shall we? All right, give me just 1 second, and away we go. I moved to Brooklyn in 2006. At the time, I was living in Binghamton, New York, and found myself at a precarious fork in the road. Either stay here and work a menial job, blink and turn 65, or gamble on the unknown Kings County. As the saying goes, fortune favors the bold. So I left the city I called home. I drove a small U-Haul down the winding highways of Route 86 to start my life in Prospect Heights. That drive would mark one of the last few times I would be behind the wheel of a car, as my new life in Brooklyn would wed me to the Q, 4, and 5 train, a sort of toxic polyamorous relationship. I had a room in my sister's apartment, a shotgun-style living arrangement that my Brooklyn rookie mind had to grapple with. Why do you have to walk through my room to leave? And furthermore, why am I sleeping on a futon mattress on the floor? During the first few months, my world felt giant and small simultaneously. The few blocks of Vanderbilt Ave felt like a winding maze of stores I'd never seen upstate, with what felt like thousands of people of all shades hustling to somewhere important. My head was spinning every day I'd come back from my exploration. Everyone here walks so fast. Beef patties are delicious. No one looks at each other. These are the reflections that I had. Soon, the world grew, and I discovered a local watering hole. It was a divey sort of joint named Mooney's Pubs. Excuse me. It is the type of place where a novelty cocktail is not on the menu, but an incredible jukebox could serve you a perfect song with your beer and shot. I ensured the soundtrack of Superfly played whenever I sat. It soon became my window into the myriad of citizens who stitched together the fabric that made Brooklyn what it is. From the grizzled old man from Bay Ridge who would talk about how there, quote, were places you didn't go unless you didn't want to keep your wallet, to the social worker from Bed-Stuy who'd seen everything under the sun and everyone in between. I soon realized that Brooklyn created a bona fide full-length feature film if you ask someone, how's it going? I finally think back to my Mooney days. When I started hanging out at my friend's apartment on Eastern Parkway, slowly Brooklyn revealed more of itself. It was in a pre-war building that felt cavernous when you walked in. Chipped marble floors and half-smoked cigarette butts lined the floor. This was also the first time I encountered an elevator that smelled like urine. Why would someone leave a yellow surprise in here? I was venturing further into Brooklyn, but still a novice. My apartment at the time was in Prospect Heights, and I would get a car service from Crown Heights. A 1-mile walk was adventurous for me. Today, I make this walk and I don't blink. I scold my younger Brooklyn self for this all the time. The Parkway has two very contrasting concepts. A tree-lined highway with apartments encasing it. In addition, there were benches to take all this in. Those benches would serve as a perch for me to contemplate my life and reflect on a victory or doom scroll on my phone, dreading the job that I hated. A multi-purpose sanctuary with zooming traffic as the soundtrack. Eventually, after spending enough time on Eastern Parkway, a room opened up in my friend's apartment and I moved in. I have now traded the trappings of Vanderbilt for the nature-infused world of the Parkway and Crown Heights. Crown Heights would soon become my home base. It also marked an experience many Brooklynites have: roommates. In my prior life, sharing a living situation with a non-family member would be out of the question. However, when the monthly rent is as high as the top of the one Hanson place, you budget some things. The rent was affordable for a huge reason. I soon wore the hat of being a live-in super. At first, we would call the super to fix things around the apartment. We would often be met with one of two outcomes. He would never show up, or when he did, he would look at the situation, look at us, shrug his shoulders, and walk away. So, for a reduced rent, I would go onto YouTube, research how to fix a doorknob, and do my best. A world of shower schedules and initialed items in a refrigerator became the norm. One of the weekly tasks that blew my mind was leaving my apartment to do my laundry. Up until this point in my existence, there was a washer and dryer in the basement. This was now not the case. We had a Carolina blue laundry cart that served as a vehicle to transport my clothes. The cart was ready to roll, whether the sun was blazing or Mother Nature brought sleet or hail. One thing Brooklyn will inform you is that even the little things require effort. Overall, life was good at this point. My familiarity expanded, and I began to venture out and experience new passions, particularly stand-up comedy. I always enjoyed watching it, and one day I worked up the courage, aided by copious amounts of alcohol, to try it. I stepped on the stage for the first time at the Abigail Cafe and Wine Bar in the basement. It was a small space with a weathered couch in the back and some chairs dotting the area. The stage was a gnarled square of astroturf. My hot takes and perspectives on roommate life, being underemployed, and everything I saw took shape. Some like-minded, aspiring comedians would join me every Wednesday to try our hands at setups and punchlines. And that is the time that I moved to Brooklyn. Thank you.
Amazing.
Oh, thanks.
That was great. Also, like you could really see every. Am I on echo?
A little bit.
Yeah, I don't know why, but no, it stopped. Am I right? It stopped. That was great. I mean, I feel everything you say. I know Crown Heights. I know all those neighborhoods, and it's like all these neighborhoods are so different now. But that I like change. That's New York. It's all about the change. And thank you for reading that. That was beautiful, Jim Search. So I don't think Trisha is here. So we're going to go with Diane. A store closes in Brooklyn.
Thank you. It started as a rumor, early spring 2024. I overheard it as I stood in my kitchen in Eastern Long Island, hands in a sink filled with cold water, washing the grit out of broccoli rabe. My husband exchanged messages with his friend from Bensonhurst, then called him. Yes, the store is closing. No way, that can't be. It opened in 1925, selling hardware ever since. I know they also sell stuff you can't find in other stores. And every time you go in there, the place is crowded. None of that matters. I'm telling you, the store is closing. When? No one knows. I bet it's going to happen soon. Before I reached for the car remote and drove 80 miles west, I scanned the internet. Best I could tell, it was business as usual at Duty Home Center on the corner of Avenue Y and East 17th Street in the Sheepshead Bay section of Brooklyn. I dug into the cabinet where bulky items are stored, located my extra large stainless steel colander. It's dented on one side, missing a handle. Perfect for draining the big batch of cleaned greens. When I peeled the cloves, then chopped a head full of garlic, I remembered buying the colander at Duty's 20 plus years prior when I lived near Marine Park. In fact, the dinged up, discolored plastic cutting board on my countertop was also purchased at Duty Home Center. I finished cooking dinner, then texted someone I knew well. Throughout her life, she'd lived in Sheepshead Bay or the surrounding areas and taught in public schools all around the borough. She was full of information, often reliable enough to convert unconfirmed gossip to soul-saving gospel. Duties, I wrote. She texted back. I heard a rumor. Don't know if it's true. A few days later, my husband and I went to Brooklyn to watch our grandkids. My daughter said she was preparing for guests to stay over. Since we sleep there regularly, she asked, could you lend them the keys to my house? Without hesitation, I said no. The next morning, my husband and I entered Duty Home Center. The key duplicating counter was to the left. I handed the associate the keys to my daughter's house. The metal on metal din from the grinder made my mind wander. Back to earlier times when I waited in that same spot for freshly cut, hand-filed copies of original keys that unlocked so many doors. Thick wooden ones on the houses where I lived. Heavy steel doors on the vehicles I drove. Flimsy tin doors on the lockers that held my belongings when I was a student, first at Kingsborough Community, then at Brooklyn College. While daydreaming, I noticed another employee off to the side. When I glanced her way, she looked down onto her inventory sheet, where she drew tick marks to catalog the cans of bug spray and mouse traps she removed from the shelves. After I paid for the new keys, I approached the associate who had averted my gaze. I heard a rumor. Is it true? Is the store closing? She looked me right in the eye and smiled. You want to know what? Is the store closing? Today's Thursday. Like every other weekday, the store's closing. 8 p.m. sharp. I hope you find what you're looking for before then. Zazing. Cute as it was, the employee's response to my question was flippant. In what appeared to be another effort to avoid me, she turned away, walked over to the floor cleaning tools, took down the dust mops and brooms that hung from hooks along the pegboard wall and balanced them on top of an empty shopping cart. Annoyed and remembering I needed a clear plastic table protector, I ventured into the kitchen goods section. There were few coverings of any kind. I walked down the next aisle, past the shelves that held the dish towels and pot holders, silverware and cutlery organizers. These items were scarce. There was another surprise over in the corner, by the emergency exit, where the laundry products were stowed. The ironing boards, hampers, clotheslines, and baskets, all gone. I traveled deeper into the store. The paint mixing counter was quiet. In the area that contained cleaning supplies for the kitchen and bath, staff members were clearing shelves, scribbling on spreadsheets, and taking inventory off the floor. A bold customer approached a worker who stood on a ladder, dismantling the toilet seat display. She hollered up to him, "The last thing this neighborhood needs is another luxury condo. They better not build one here after the store closes." The associate didn't reply. Had he done so, I might have suspended my belief that the woman's outburst was based on hearsay, not fact. My husband and I split up. He checked out the lumber, plumbing, and lighting departments. I took window treatments, bathroom decor, and gardening. The more I searched, the less I found. In the very back of the store, I expected to see the latest selection of pool accessories, backyard furniture, and grills. Stretched out on the concrete floor was a faux grass indoor-outdoor carpet remnant. On top of it sat nothing. I raced toward the cashiers and found the employee I questioned earlier, struggling to speak while panting. I told her I just left seasonal. She put her hand on my shoulder. "So now you know." I placed my hand on top of hers. "Yes, I do. It's awful losing a favorite place to shop. Don't I know it? From the time I was 5, I used to come here with my dad. He would tell me to stay home. He was making a quick run for screws or an outlet. I would tag along, nag the whole time, beg him to buy me a hot dog from the cart near the parking lot. In the store, Dad said no. Once we were outside, he always gave in. Such a good father. The best," she said. I imagine the vendor will have to find a new corner for his business. But what about you? Soon you'll be out of a job. Do you know what you're going to do once the store closes? The worker smoothed the curled edge of her apron. "No, I don't. I'm young. I have options. You know what really worries me?" "No, what?" "It's the customers, the elderly ones that live alone. They're my regulars. When it's hot, freezing cold, raining hard, or snow is falling, they come in here, buy something small, like an air freshener. Truly, they don't need whatever it is they're buying. They need to get out of the house, find someone to chat with, share a smile, a few laughs. I don't care how busy I am. I always have an extra minute to make an older person happy." "I can see that makes you happy too." She shook her head, then frowned. "The future looks sad. These men, these women, with no place to go for friendship, they'll be shut in and lonely. When this store closes, the real void in the neighborhood may go unnoticed." Thank you.
Thank
Oh,
you. That was so true. It's like a life. I mean, you really brought that store, you made that store feel like it had like a life being, you know? It just makes like it sense that it symbolized so many things, a lifeline too, for that was beautifully said. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. This is great. And I just want to say, like, if you guys all want to share like your social media or your contact information or anything, please put it in the chat and or say it out loud or so people can find you and really, you know, see more of your art and your work. That was a really beautiful story, Diane. A store closes in Brooklyn, besides a
Yes.
tree growing in
Can
Brooklyn.
I just add
I
one
know.
thing, Ruth? So I mentioned
Yes.
that I live in Eastern Long Island, and so does a close friend of mine, also from Brooklyn. And lots of times we would talk, "Oh, where can I get nice curtains?" Or "I need some garden flags. Where should I go?" And we have lots of shopping out here. We're in the suburbs. And the answer was always duty.
Of
Whenever
course.
we needed something, we went back to Brooklyn for duty.
Aw, that's
And,
beautiful.
and of course, I go back to Brooklyn for pizza and bagels. That
Mm,
too. Thank you,
smart
everyone.
woman. You're a smart woman. Yes, you are.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much. So Barbara, you're up with
Thank you.
your
And
story.
I love being immersed in these Brooklyn voices. I feel home. At 76, I have come to it, crossing the Brooklyn Bridge. I confess to you, I never lived in Brooklyn, yet I live there. This is my story. I tell myself of my roots, my past, and my future. I have told the waiter it is my birthday. My daughter is not pleased. She is an assistant state attorney general and former prosecutor and is concerned about my living in my lane. The lane she refers to in this case is representing myself as having a birthday at a venue I come to for its ceremonial birthday cake, a cake respecting celebration as a concept and cake itself existential meaning with layers and thick icing with sprinkles and a candle and free. She is on her stern face. Mom, you already said it was your birthday last September and you made them bring you cake again when you were here in May. Maybe this is prima facie. She means because my birthday is in August. She's mortified on behalf of whom? Perhaps just the principle of being truthful. I say, the mollifying mother, well, perhaps in December at least I won't say it's my birthday, but I consider birthday cake is at stake now and in the future. And then E. E. Cummings' sonnet. I thank you, God, for most this amazing comes to me. I hate to weaponize E. E. Cummings, but this is matter of cake, specifically birthday cake. My hungers make me ingenious, invoke Deus ex machina, my Athena whispering, and I recite it to her, my defense, my expert witness. I who have died am alive again today. And this is the sun's birthday. And this is the birthday of life and of love and wings and the gay great happening illimitably earth. In fact, I say, I'm going to celebrate every day as if it is a legit birthday. Legit is a primary word in her vocabulary and value system, and her whole generation's quest for what is authentic. I'm speaking her language across cultural achievement. We've raised them right, but they have no idea in this idealization of authentic how real actually turns out to be. A year ago, my neck was fused at C3 to 7, urgent surgery on my spinal cord with a cage and cadaver tissue to make up for my extracted discs and vertebrae. And it turns out I'm doing exercises for PT and tear both rotator cuffs and my right bicep tendon. I fractured my tailbone in L5 of the spinal column because I sat in her fancy minimalist chair with only a strip of hide to sit on and it toppled. In 2 days, I'm having an MRI of my lower spine, and I just had a hip replacement. The other hip I already had replaced. I'm numb, I'm in pain. I move, wincing, and in contortion. So it seems this is the time I have to do something totally to celebrate being alive again today, by which I mean some kind of symbolic and meaningful defining of my life, which at the moment feels perilous. So what do you want to do? My daughter asks me, how do you want to celebrate? And it comes to me, the Brooklyn Bridge. This vibrates like a hummingbird staring me in the face. I am startled at the rightness, this authenticity. Nobody would see this coming. Besides, it is counterintuitive given my daily crises du jour of my physical properties. I was born in Hollywood. I grew up in wild, dry hills above Los Angeles, witch hazel and coyotes and arroyos and gophers. I cultivated skin cancers on beaches. I danced to the Beach Boys. I was as far from Brooklyn as one could get. That was actually the point in my parents' minds. I did not know better, that all people did not leave their families forever if they could help it, that most grandfathers were not shot down in front of their barbershops with New York Tribune reporting there were no witnesses, and it was never spoken about, that it was not a thing that mothers and fathers renounce and disown and abandon their children because they married a foreigner. I did know that when Fanny Rumore, the only working grandparent in my life, came to town bearing stained bags of strange biscuits and making pizza, the clash between our way of life and hers was bicoastal drama or trauma. You don't have to use the phone, my father said, just yell across the country. When she came from New York, my grandmother stood on our Loma Alta street and stopped cars, chanting hoarsely, "God bless you, airport." The call came from the airport 60 miles away. My grandmother wanted to go back to her Joey and civilized life. My God, where are all the peoples? When she and my Brooklyn Uncle Joe visited, their characters spilled beyond the newly graveled streets. She would shell peanuts and drink whiskey. "More peanuts," she would shout, only it sounded like more penis. My childhood, a grandmother straddling a kitchen chair, yelling for more penis. Somehow I associated this with Brooklyn, real life. Whereas we were the last street before the mountains rose before the desert, as far west as you could go. From the farthest east, you could live in Brooklyn. I did not get it, that need to escape for a new life. And yet I longed for what I never had, an old life, and the streets and my father's photographs from Charles Pfizer's Brooklyn at night in the rain, the mysterious right-angle brick buildings, the mysteries from Mazzola's. When I grow up, I said, I'm going back east. The return. I had an outfit, a red hat and gloves and shoes and wool plaid skirt and vest. I had never seen an apartment, but I would live in one, with a balcony I'd never seen, and one geranium. I would walk streets with stores and parks with benches and people living loud and colorfully as my grandma calling penis and Uncle Joe's yellow and purple silk shirts and striped trousers snapping his fingers, "Baba, hey Baba." What's it to me now to cross the Brooklyn Bridge? Why is this my aspirational birthday act? 1976, San Jose Studies Discovering America challenged me to consider myself an American. The way I saw it at age 28, my entire life in the rural wilds of Los Angeles, cacti and pepper trees, was exile. My poem begins, I am the daughter of manifest destiny, spawned by the Brooklyn Bridge. It concludes, I am the heroine sent out for the Brooklyn Bridge. I have to carry it, arched across my back. Now, the thing is, to be honest, and yes, I do claim saying every day is my birthday is honest. I knew nothing about Brooklyn. In discovering myself, I'm crossing that bridge now of myth and legend, exotica of basements, subways, relatives. On the other hand, I knew Brooklyn. You can't live in America, even 3,000 miles away, and read literature and not know Brooklyn. Not only the dead, Brooklyn is the story we tell ourselves about who we are. Brooklyn is where we confront and celebrate ourselves. Betty Smith enters the hotel. Hello, I'm Betty Smith. A tree grows in Brooklyn. Do you have a room? Hello, Salvo Botani. Ah, life, ain't it wonderful? Sorry, no rooms. The phenomenon of a tree growing, something to write home about. The most common thing on earth, a tree growing in Brooklyn, was extraordinary. The book title made what happened in Brooklyn of primary importance to us all. As a teacher and scholar of American literature, I read epic works about the American dream, and they are all set in Brooklyn. I'm not saying I lived there. I'm saying I lived there perhaps as all Americans do in my mind. In my mind, I'm always coming back, returning from exile in triumph and war-torn, to be the Odyssean bedraggled stranger, and perhaps to not belong, as I have never belonged, with my longing always to be there, away from here, back there, my sense of vicarious community, communing with the ethos of this place, ordering from Goldbelly the ovenly Brooklyn blackout cake, from Carousel Cakes, Brooklyn cupcake, a tourist excited by everything, here in the crosswords, this path, out and in, towards and away, and rooted like a bridge's towers, a place spawning a bridge that brings us in and away, like the tides below, swirling all around. I will walk the bridge however I can, like P.T. Barnum's 21 elephants, and carrying, like Emily Roebling, a rooster. I didn't sit in Berkeley's Library of Engineering for 6 months learning about the Brooklyn Bridge so I could lecture in 26 countries about it for nothing. I will walk this bridge. And my mother, who longed her whole life growing up in New York, growing up in Brooklyn, to have a rooster, to have that place. Rooster is my totem, and the song shall be coming round the mountain. I always thought I would figure out how to save the old red rooster, whom they'll kill when it comes. After all, I'm the heroine sent out for the Brooklyn Bridge. I can do this. I can walk 1.3 miles from Brooklyn holding a rooster and perhaps a cane and see the Statue of Liberty where Mommy and Daddy's family settled in, and pour Brooklyn beer on my head on the rocky beach, and ride Jane's carousel, and go to the parks and museum and read my poetry in this place which says, come back here, come, you who have died are alive again today, have some cake.
Wow, that was great. And I've never heard it before, but my grandmother is the only person who I know that always used to say, live every day like it's your birthday.
Ah,
She always, yes, she's the only one that said that. So, and she did live in Brooklyn for part of her life. And
oh,
wow, yeah, that was great. I don't know. Wow. Have you ever walked over the Brooklyn Bridge?
well, so I did it for my birthday.
You
When I
did do
turned,
it.
yes, when I turned, I did it.
76.
Yes, with, having had hip surgery
Yeah.
7 weeks before. And I had a cane,
Ah,
and I pulled a red wagon full of Pabst Blue Ribbon beer because my father had to be a chemist. There weren't jobs anymore for chemists in Los Angeles. And so we would sing Happy Birthday, Mother Beer. Won't you have some East Side beer? And we poured beer over our head. So I walked over the Brooklyn Bridge and I poured beer over my head. And it was glorious.
that's beautiful. Oh my gosh. Only in Brooklyn. You got it. You pinpointed it. That was really, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
that's Barbara Mossberg. And is Amazing Tools Carol? Are you Amazing Tools? No? So Carol, why don't we hear you? Carol Ann.
Okay, I don't think you mentioned me in the lineup,
I'm
but
so sorry.
it's the Pigeon Magician, a memory of my youth in Brooklyn. I was there till I was 14. This is dedicated to my father. My memories of Brooklyn are decades old, but they're visceral and they're colorful. And here's one, The Pigeon Magician. On Sunday, the warm brick brownstones and concrete sidewalks of the North Side thrummed in time to the clanging of church bells. I listened to the echoes kissing the rooftops on their way to the East River. Families gathered on sidewalks, greeting friends and neighbors hurrying to morning mass. People dashed home carrying white bakery boxes tied with red and white string, sheltering sugar buns and warm bagels. My mother rose before the bells chimed or the streets filled with churchgoers to prepare our Sunday family dinner. The aroma of bubbling tomato sauce and frying meatballs woke us as Mom cooked our future Sunday feast. We jumped out of bed and ran to the kitchen, following the aroma, even though we had to wait until late afternoon when the table was set and family arrived. Sunday was special. Sunday was precious. Sunday was the best day because my father was home. He worked the night shift at Domino Sugar on the East River just a few blocks away. He slept during the day, but not on Sunday, a day for family. My sisters and I would have him all to ourselves. On Sunday, he would take his 4 daughters into the clouds of Brooklyn where the birds fly. But first, we ate breakfast, dressed in Sunday best, and waited for my father to say, "Ready?" Rushing after him, we risked falling down at least one of 2 flights of stairs to tumble off the stoop. Like a ball of squirming puppies, we untangled ourselves and arrived on the sidewalk to follow our father. As we strolled the neighborhood streets, all was quiet. Grocers, pet shops, and drugstores were closed. Until finally we stood before the unassuming gray metal factory doors, the entrance to our special place in the sky. As we jiggled and wiggled behind Dad, he inserted a huge key into the lock and hauled open the thick door with a metallic screech. We scrambled into the bright, cavernous gloom of a concrete stairwell leading to the roof, trying hard not to fall up the stairs in our excitement. The metal door at the top of these stairs framed brilliant sunlight. Bursting onto the flat tarmac roof, the cooing mumbles of hundreds of pigeons greeted us. The birds took flight at our intrusion. Homing pigeons were everywhere. Some roosted in a coop built by my father. Others bobbed unruffled by our presence as they pecked around our feet. Some swirled around our heads to land and perch soundlessly on the roof's edge, their ruffled feathers tucked back into place. A 4-foot wall encircled the roof for safety, so we flung ourselves into the flock as though we were flying. Our dresses, like pastel peonies, bloomed brightly in contrast to the blue, black, and gray iridescent feathers of the pigeons. Our patent leather shoes winked in the sunlight as we danced among the birds, our arms outstretched, mimicking flight. My father's smile embraced us as his daughters and the pigeons surrounded him. In this special place, he raised and trained homing pigeons, racing them competitively. A visitor to this rooftop had a panoramic view of other coops scalloping the Brooklyn horizon. Clusters of other flocks circled the sky across our neighborhood, but this roof was our special world where my father and the pigeons spoke silently and magically to each other. Once we finished our dance with the pigeons, we waited for our father's lesson. Gently, he would place a baby pigeon, all pinprick feathers, into each of our hands. Blind and wobbly, we held the squab close to our bodies, creating a cradle to keep it safe, just as my father taught us. Putting the babies back in the coop, my father cupped the marble-sized blue pigeon eggs in his massive hands, placing one carefully in each of ours. We marveled that my father could hold 24 eggs in his palms without ever dropping one. "Someday soon, those tiny eggs will hatch and need some training. But for now, we need to keep them safe," he said, looking at each of us in turn and nodding. We looked right back at him with serious faces, nodding our heads as he did. Reaching for a pigeon, he encircled it in his calloused, broad hand, covering all but its head, feet, and tip of tail for us to examine, showing us that each pigeon wore a bracelet around its foot to identify its flock. The bird never struggled, but seemed content to rest from its perpetual bobbing in my father's hands. We asked our relentless and often repeated questions, which my father answered with gentle patience. After our questions and his answers finally ended, he opened his hand and released the pigeon into the sky. Then my father stood and crossed to the coop, retrieving a 15-foot bamboo stem, the one he used to command and train his flock. When my father fetched his bamboo wand, we knew the show was about to begin. Raising it and pointing it at the sky, he whistled sharply, startling the birds into the clouds. The soft roar of hundreds of flapping wings filled the air. The flock whirled higher, and we could not tell one pigeon from another. Feet planted firmly on the roof, my father gracefully traced the sky with his bamboo wand, etching the clouds with invisible circles, figure eights, and swirls. The flock flew against the blue blanket of sky as though following an invisible map. The pigeons were under my father's spell. With heads tilted skyward, we watched the show as the pigeons embroidered the clouds in sharp black stitches at the command of the Pigeon Magician. We knew the performance was over when my father lowered his wand and his pigeons came home. He secured the bamboo stick and ushered the pigeons into their coop for safety until he returned. When he latched and locked the coop, we were never sad because another magic show was waiting for us next Sunday. Down from the rooftop and onto the sidewalk, we once again followed our father back to my mother, our family, and Sunday dinner. With imaginary wands raised to heaven, my father's daughter swirled and twirled as we followed the Pigeon Magician home.
Hmm.
Wow. Pigeons. They're just precious though. They get a bad rap, but they don't. They're really popular now. They're special and they're very, very city in New York. That was
Yeah.
great. That was really, really lovely. Wow. Everyone, all your stories are just so different, but yet so there's like a patchwork quilt of the commonality of Brooklyn. And Brooklyn, to be honest, is really having a resurgence. I mean, it was its own city and it really has the ability to be its own city. I mean, how many kids are being named Brooklyn right now?
It's true. It's
So
true.
many kids are Brooklyn, and it's like they've probably never been to Brooklyn, but boy, do they want to come to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I know. It's really like Brooklyn has something that nowhere else on the world has, and you guys have all just given it a little bit of glitter because you just sprinkled it all over, and it's like I don't know. I feel like Brooklyn is smiling right now down at all
Oh,
of you. Um, I just really do. So I see someone joined with the phone number 347. Are you
Yes,
can,
finally, Coreen. I did it through the phone. I said I'll do it through
great.
the phone because I wasn't. Yeah, I
So Corey,
practiced Zoom last night.
I'm sure you did, but you know how it is. Expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
So Corrine,
Yes.
we would love for you to read your story. Please add it to
Okay.
the bunch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This thanks. This story is about some experiences I had during the COVID outbreak. It brings me back to an uncertain time, but it is a testimony of the human spirit's resilience and pays homage to the loved ones we lost. My COVID story. I really did not know what to expect. China was the first place where the news reported it was disastrously affecting, then Italy and the rest of Europe. The next thing I heard was that New Rochelle and Williamsburg were getting cases at rapid rates. Hospital emergency rooms were packed. Doctors and nurses' expertise and medical training were put to the test for a new infection, which no one knew how to treat. I did not know the valleys and mountains I would have to endure. It seemed deadly because it was. Death was staring in our faces. I was stationed in the main office, and then half of the office was out sick with this disease, the coronavirus 19, COVID. I was one of the fortunate ones. The office had to be cleared and terminally cleaned. No one could enter that office. I was sent to another office in March of 2020 to work on a project. I could see the arrangements of the wooden crates being pulled and pushed from where I sat. For the deceased probably did not know the gravity of their condition until they were at death's door. As I heard the door open, my gut griped. "We are here to pick up 10 more bodies," a funeral director stated. "How are you?" he asked. I replied, "I am fine." That was not true because just before that, my fingers had paused as my eyes strayed to the window, witnessing the trucks with the wooden crates. I reflected on the week before that men were pounding to prepare for people's demise. "And how are you?" I asked. "I am okay, but we don't want business like this. This is too much." I looked at him and shook my head. My day at work was over, and I decided I would go to Kings Highway to get some grocery items. I took the B82 and got off East 16th Street. As I got off the bus, I saw stores that had just opened for business shuttered. Faces of the people looked drawn and tired. I witnessed where some people would not even look up as I walked down the street. Familiar stores were also at the expense of this mysterious disease. I was able to pick up a few fruits. I took the bus back to connect to the B46 to Church and Utica Avenues. The bus was crowded, but I was masked as usual. The streets were filled like it was Labor Day weekend. As I departed from the bus, an elderly lady screamed, "These are the last days, repent." I did wonder if these were the last days. An uncle of mine and a few friends saw their last days in 2020 because of COVID. My family and I could not pay our respects as we wanted to. There were small gatherings. We still had to be grateful and enjoy each other. A few of my immediate family members had the virus and did survive, but to this day have long-term effects, as many other people. Those were some of the realities of the disease. In September of 2020, the situation was getting more hopeful in New York City. I remember going to Coney Island just before midday and walked the boardwalk. The sun was out, but it was a little overcast. I saw the seagulls and couples walking hand in hand. There were children playing and laughing in the sand. It was a beautiful day, and my heart and mind were filled, feeling and thinking that there would be more days like this and even better days to come.
Wow.
Finished.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so
You're
glad you
welcome.
put it on. You know, it's technology. We never know what's going to
Yes,
happen. But you did it.
yes,
We got to hear
yes.
you, and you weren't muted. We
Thank
couldn't
you.
see you, but it sounded great. It
Yeah,
reminded me of like the radio days that my parents always talk about. You know, like you could see it in your own mind and make a story. You know,
yes.
everything's so visual now anyway. So that was really refreshing to hear it. So
Thank you.
all of you, I'm so grateful that I had the honor of listening to all your stories. I will, you know, find you as best I can on social media. And Aziz, do you want to say something? This has been a beautiful experience. I want to just give you all a huge applause. Yeah, because